So after the DeAndre Baker news, the Giants, of course, have a possible hole at cornerback too. Of course, we have James Bradberry playing the number one spot primarily, but then after that, there's not much outside corner depth on the roster. You could say Julian Love. He's a guy that's played all over, whether it was safety or inside cornerback as well. There is Corey Ballantyne. There is Sam Beal. Sam Beal had his ups and downs last year for sure. He also has his durability issues. So the Giants might be in the market for a veteran free agent cornerback, and so I put together a list of about 5 players or so that I could see the Giants targeting once DeAndre Baker's contract situation is all sorted out. I don't think this stuff will happen very soon, but I do think at some point, whether it's July, August, whenever, they will sign a veteran free agent at cornerback to try and bring in here and just add some depth on their roster because they have a lot of young guys right now. So with that being said, let's get into it. Option number 1 is Brandon Carr, 34-year-old. I think he's 33, but he turns 34 in the next few days, so I'll just put 34. 6 feet tall, 210, according to, I think it's the Sports or Football Reference, whatever it is, Pro Football Reference. I don't want to get yelled at because the height and weights are wrong. I mean, I'm just going off that. So he's very durable. He's never missed a game in his career, and he's been in the league since 2008. I think he started up with the Chiefs, has a connection with Jason Garrett, obviously, has a connection with the new secondary coach, Jerome Henderson, as well. And if you've watched the Giants over the years, you probably know about Brandon Carr. He's the guy in the picture of Odell making the one-handed catch, I believe. He's the guy that, didn't have a lot of good moments against the Giants, honestly. Thinking back on it, he was the guy covering Odell on the slant pass as well. They took to the house in the 2016 home games. So yeah, he has not had good moments against the Giants, but does not mean he's a bad player or anything like that. So he played a lot of safety last year is what I noticed. I went back and watched all these guys. I'll admit, I didn't watch every snap of them, believe me, but I at least saw enough where I kind of understood what type of players they were. And Brandon Carr did play pretty much everywhere for this team. I mean, not really in the slot, but really outside cornerback and even safety. So he is, I guess, versatile with that. But the thing, him being 34 years old does kind of scare me in a way, but at the same time, as I said, he's not missed a game in his career yet. So I mean, why would it happen next year, right? Anyway, his 2019 advanced numbers were 54% completions against him for 11.6 yards per completion. That's not a terrible number, but he did miss 18% of his tackles in 2019, which is another Football Reference stat. So the numbers aren't too bad, I'll admit. He seems like a good guy. I've read good things about him and his personality and stuff like that, so now I'm really thinking into who's a good locker room guy and stuff like that. But Brandon Carr seems to be a good guy, and I don't know if he wants to go to a team like the Giants. I figured he'd rather compete. I figured he'd eventually return to the Ravens. I know they declined his option, but then I figured he'd sign back for cheap, a cheaper deal. But we'll see. I really have no idea when he'll sign, but he is an option because of the Jason Garrett and Jerome Henderson connection back in Dallas. So we'll see if that one happens. Next, we have Tramon Williams, who will be 37 years old next year. I think he is 37 already. He turned 37 in March. 5'11", 191. He played under Patrick Graham in 2018. Of course, Patrick Graham was the linebackers coach, I believe, for Green Bay. But I'm sure these two know each other based off that mutual connection. So he played a lot of slot last year is what I noticed. He did play outside at some points. He actually had an interception against the Giants and Daniel Jones last year, playing outside cornerback. He high-pointed the ball very nicely, so that was good to see. His 2019 advanced stats were 57% completion percentage against him and 13.2 yards per reception, and missed 11.4 tackles, which I guess is not terrible for a cornerback. But I said 34 scared me last time. 37 definitely scares you, but he's been relatively durable throughout his career. He's missed 9 games in 13 seasons, which I would say is pretty damn good. I think he played every game last year as well. So I don't know if this is a guy that's going to play every down for you at age 37, but at the same time, he can give you some good, meaningful snaps here and there. He's not that bad of a player. I think he's lower on my list of guys I would want personally, but I'm not going to be mad if the Giants brought him in because, playing corner at a high level at that age is just, it's something you don't see very often. I know Terrence Newman, another former Cowboy, speaking of Cowboys, he was a guy who played till his late 30s and was pretty effective for most of it, so it happens for sure. But I think Tramon Williams is a guy that probably played a lot more slot last year than outside, so I'm not sure he'd be the best scheme fit and whatnot. But if a guy like Patrick Graham puts in the good word for him, then I could see it happening. But at the same time, that age scares me for sure. Next, we have Dre Kirkpatrick, who was 30 years old, 6'2", 190. He's a former first-round pick of the Bengals. I think he was in the middle of the first round, if I remember correctly, and I think he went to Alabama. So he did have season-ending knee injury last year. It wasn't that bad of an injury. I think it was one of those things where like he got injured in like week 6 or 7. The Bengals were out of it by that point and probably just told him like, don't rush back. It's fine. And he was on a contract year anyway, so I think for the better of him and even the team, he just sat out the rest of the year. So he could have played in more games last year, I feel like, but he only played in 6 last year. He hasn't played the full 16 since 2015, but since then he's played in 15, 14, 13. You figured that would go to 12, but no, it went to 6. So maybe this guy does have some injury concerns to be worried about. But, throughout his career, he's been playing in most games, so I really can't say anything too bad about that. So he was pretty good in 2018. He was solid. And then in 2019, he had an off year. I mean, definitely it started out bad. It got better, and then he got hurt, and then his season was over, but he was showing signs of getting better before his injury, so I guess that's something positive. He had 63 completed passes, or 63% completions against him for 13 yards last season in his limited time, and only 10% of missed tackles, which is not too bad, honestly. So I like Kirkpatrick. He has good energy, and I feel like he's a team guy. I watched an interview with him, and honestly, he reminded me a lot of Janoris Jenkins. It's not just the dreads, it's like his personality just seemed a lot like Janoris Jenkins in a way. So I'm not sure the Giants wouldn't go this route. I'd be kind of surprised actually if they signed Kirkpatrick, but in terms of like upside and guys that probably have a lot left in the tank, I feel like he might be one of those guys, but he also might be on a negative trajectory with his injury history, you know what I mean? So he's been missing more and more games each year. And at what point do you just say the guy's injury prone and he might not make a full season? But at the same time, if Dre Kirkpatrick goes to the right team and the right system, I can absolutely see him having a good year next year. I'm not sure after so many years of losing in Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati was not that bad throughout his career. He did make the playoffs quite a few times probably, but especially the last couple of years in Cincinnati, I don't know if he'd want to go to a team like the Giants who have struggled themselves the past few years. So I'm surprised he's not signed yet. I mean, there's not too many character concerns. I think he seems like a good guy. He's probably misunderstood. I think he's had some, marijuana stuff going on in the past, and he had his house raided at one point, I believe, but it wasn't anything like too bad. He's not, pulling out guns on people and stuff like that. So, I think he'd be fine. He's maybe not the most perfect locker room guy out there, which is kind of why I'd be surprised if the Giants go this direction, and I think has a similar personality to Janoris Jenkins, so it would surprise me for sure. But in terms of talent for guys on this list, I might like Dre Kirkpatrick the most. I just don't see it as a realistic option for the Giants. Next, we have Tramaine Brock, 31 years old, 6 feet tall, 188 pounds. So last year, late in the season, I believe, he was released by the Arizona Cardinals. He played most of the season with them, then was picked up by Tennessee. I don't think Arizona released him because he was playing terribly. I don't think that was it at all. I think the Cardinals just had so many young players on their roster and some young corners as well that they probably just wanted to open up a spot for the younger guys to play. I know they released Terrell Suggs last year, who wasn't even that bad either, so I think the Cardinals, once they realized they were not going to be in contention, they started releasing some of their veterans, so I don't think that says anything bad about Brock himself. So once he was picked up by Tennessee, though, he started playing better, and that could be because I think when he was on the Cardinals, he was playing, of course, a lot on defense because that team was not that good. They were getting a lot of points put up on them, and he was playing primarily in the slot for the Cardinals. But then once he got to the Titans, he started playing on the outside more, I guess, because they had Logan Ryan playing the slot and all those guys. So Tramaine Brock started playing on the outside a lot more, and his numbers definitely got better once he got to the Tennessee Titans. And for his durability, he's missed 2 to 5 games in the past 3 seasons, but it's not terrible. So he'll give you 12, 13, 14 games per year usually. He might miss a couple games here and there, but it's not too bad. So his 2019 advanced stats were 65.1 completion percentage against him for 10.7 yards per completion. That was over the full season, and then 15% of tackles that were missed. But when he was on the Titans last year, he only allowed 7.7 yards per completion on 16 targets. I know it's not like the biggest sample size out there, but in the time that he was playing for Tennessee, he was a lot better. So that's something to look forward to. I did hear something in the past about him having some sort of domestic violence charge against him. I think he was arrested for it, but the NFL never suspended him for it. I don't know if they dropped the charges or whatever it was, but I do believe he was arrested for domestic violence at one point. That doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad locker room guy, but I'm sure they'll do their homework on that stuff and see if it means anything. But this one I could see happening. I do think he's a solid player. He's a one-year guy. I don't think this is a multi-year thing right here, but if you want a guy to just step in and play, cornerback 3, cornerback 2, a guy that can fill in if Sam Beal gets hurt, then I do think it's a decent signing. So we'll see if this one happens. Lastly, we have Ross Cockrell, who's 28 years old, 6 feet, 190 pounds. He was a former Giant, if you remember. I mean, he did not start playing really until the end of the season, so if you were checked out by then, I honestly don't blame you. It was a lost season anyway. But Ross Cockrell did have some decent moments for the Giants. He had a nice game against the Cardinals late in the season, I remember, so he was a decent player. He has a career passer rating against him of 83. That's not too terrible either. 44 passes defended since 2015, and missed all of 2018 with a broken leg that I think happened in training camp or something like that, so that was terrible. But he came back last year, had a pretty good year. So his 2019 advanced numbers, 55% of completions against him, 12 yards per completion in 2019, and missed 16% of tackles in 2019. So he's not perfect by any means, but in terms of being a cornerback too, I think that would be fine. Maybe there's bad blood because once Gettleman came here, he basically cut Ross Cockrell and let him go. It's another decision I was not a fan of. I don't know why him and Romeo Okwara were let go that offseason, but I'll digress. So yeah, he'd be a decent player here. He has experience with the Steelers, the Giants, and Panthers in recent years. The Panthers are once again Dave Gettleman's former team. He was not there in 2019, obviously, but still, I'm sure he has some connections in the Panthers building. So if Cockrell, as long as there's no bad blood here, I do think he'd be a nice fill-in guy. Probably would not cost too much, and he's a decent player, so I could see this one happening. His durability, I don't think I looked into. Hold on, did I? No, I did not look into it, of course. All right, so let's look up Ross Cockrell right now and see how many games he's been playing recently. He did miss 2018, obviously, as I said. He played 7 games in 2014. That's long ago. But yeah, he's playing 16 games, 2 seasons. He played 14 last year. He played 15 in 2015. So yeah, I don't really have any injury concerns about this guy. I'd be fine with him, honestly. So Ross Cockrell's another option of a veteran cornerback the Giants can pick up. The last one I wanted to throw in there was Aqib Talib, who will be 34 next year. I just wanted to say that because when he was traded to New England in 2012, Joe Judge was already there, so I'm not sure if these two already have a relationship. I mean, maybe they go back a long way, 7-8 years ago, I don't know. But Talib has missed a lot of games the past 2 years. He, I think, fractured his ribs last year and, of course, was traded to the Dolphins and didn't even show up to their facility, so that was interesting. But, Talib is not a bad player by any means. He's had a really good NFL career. He's just probably not what he used to be at age 34. So I don't see that one happening, but I just want to throw his name in there. So if I had to, I guess, pick the players I'd want from this group, I would probably go, I'm really into Dre Kirkpatrick. I know that's not a personality the Giants don't want to touch probably. And Brandon Carr is an interesting one as well, based off him having a good personality. He never misses games. He's a solid player, played safety as well. And then, pretty much everyone else I kind of throw into that same area. Tramon Williams, and then we have Tramaine Brock. Those guys I'd be fine with. I'm fine with Ross Cockrell. So I don't know which one is most likely. I would guess Brandon Carr because of the whole Cowboys connection and their secondary coach as well. You could argue Tramon Williams because Patrick Graham knows him from Green Bay, so that's another one as well for talking about connections. But, personally, I'm fine with all these guys, but my top 2 are probably Kirkpatrick and Brandon Carr. So that's just me. But let me know in the comments who you'd want out of this group. Maybe someone else I forgot. But, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time.